Great opportunity right now to catch up with the head man himself. Link Jarrett, FSU Baseball, joins us on the Jeff Cameron Show. Kind enough to do that. We appreciate it. Link, first, I got to ask you right off the bat. First of all, thanks for joining us. Secondly, obviously, we've all had a chance to kind of reflect on what Mike Martin meant to so many people, this community, the university, obviously you and others as players and coaches. And I've enjoyed that process, as sad as it is to lose him. I've enjoyed hearing the reflections this weekend, memorial service this Saturday. I guess if you'd like, anything you'd like to add? I know you've had some official comments on the record, but this is the first we've had a chance to sit down and talk with you since it happened.
Yeah, Jeff. 11, number one, he gave me a chance as a player, and I was not a fantastic player. There was no line of people waiting to recruit me. After my senior year was over, in the middle of the summer, he invited me onto the team and he gave me a chance. And as you move through the years for me, the impact he had, and other players would tell you the same thing, he by nature brought out the best in us in more ways than just between the white lines. Like, he was a fantastic husband, and we saw that, an amazing father and grandfather. And as the years and decades moved along, and you appreciate the totality of 11 and how he carried himself, that stands out to me as much as anything that happened on that field. And I played a lot of innings for him and was very fortunate. Sometimes I wondered if that was in his best interest to actually have me out there all the time. He made me better as a player than I probably thought I could be. And if that's not the essence of coaching, I really don't know what is. But I also absorbed and modeled like how he did things as a human being. So there were two parts of that, and eventually they did mesh in his professional role. But it's the totality of how he carried himself and his feel, his presence, his integrity, the class with which he treated everybody that was involved in the program or touched the program. And he was the best. And you can take the wins and the number and the winningest coach ever is one thing, but how he did it and how you felt as he did it is what made him not only the best between the lines, but the best off the field too.
It's been fun, as I said, to reflect, to hear so many people such as yourself who were coached by him and affected by who he was as a man. I talked to a ton of ex-players. I've talked to obviously a lot of fans, and they share a very similar sentiment, Link, that, the wins are the wins. They're there to look at, and we can talk about it, and it's amazing. It's certainly a reflection of how effective a coach he was, but most people do what you just did, which is talk about the man himself and how he impacted you off the field. And that's been really kind of an enriching thing to be able to hear that over and over again from fans, players, coaches, administrators, all within seconds saying, yeah, but it was who he was as a man.
There's no doubt. I mean, it stands out. Like, the moment you meet him, you know that he has it. And we talk about the it factor, and he had it in every walk of life. And I got to see him before he passed, and what Carol supported him through and how she handled it. Absolutely. She's an amazing lady. And I want Saturday's event to be the best we can possibly make it, the best day for her, the family, for 11. There's going to be hundreds of former players. When you start getting into the former assistant coaches, staffing, managers, people that were involved in the program, that's who's going to be out here behind home plate. Yeah. It's going to be incredible. And I think that'll summarize the look of this stadium. When you look behind home plate in the grandstand, I think you will feel the levity of what he was able to do in terms of how he made people feel like they belong to the program, aside from just the players. It was an amazing trait he had, and nobody did it better.
Not an easy transition, but we will talk some baseball here now, as I wanted certainly to give you the opportunity to talk about 11 there. Fan Day's coming up in not too distant future. In preparation for this, I had to refamiliarize myself with the roster. And in doing that, Link, good God, man, can you name all your players? If I'm not mistaken, now you tell me if I got these numbers wrong, because I didn't think this was legal, but I don't know what the rules are anymore. Do you have 45 plus players on this roster?
Well, you do. 40 is the number, and then you're going to have injured players that by rule don't count.
Okay.
And, you have a couple pitchers in high school that, unfortunately, in our sport, like the arm injury is real and it happens and they're out for the year. So we're really right where we need to be. Jeff, I'm just going to tell you, and you could talk to Coach Norvell, and you can talk to Leonard, and you can talk to Brooke. Talent acquisition warfare and how you land players in this day and age of college athletics is unlike anything any of us have ever seen. And I've been doing this 25 years. This summer, what we went through to try to onboard talent, it's just an unprecedented era of transition and movement in college athletics. And when you factor in our sport, there's no other sport on this campus. Hockey would be the only other thing that's even close to what we deal with the draft and the timing of the draft and how you navigate who actually is going to show up. There was a period of time late in the summer when we had mid-50s on our roster.
Wow.
And you have to, because all of a sudden Johnny signs and Timmy signs and Randy signs and Scott signs and this happens, and then there's a free agent and Doug Kirkland signs as a free agent, and all of a sudden the reality of what we deal with at the finish line is like, it's incredible. So to get to 44, not all 44 are healthy, but to get to the number, if you're not at 54, 55, you're fooling yourself. Like, you will be left completely bare. And in that summer period, if you're going to entertain transfers, that has to happen as soon as the season ends and that transfer portal opens. And if you're not on it, like, I think it opens, I can't even remember the dates, but it's, in some respects, the season is still going. The post, like, if you're not involved in those conversations to land some of these players, then you're going to be stuck. And you can ask Mike and the other coaches, like, what it's like to try to build that roster. It does give you an opportunity when you have transition to try to fill some of the gaps that you have. And hopefully that's what we did. Now, we filled it. To what extent did we fill it, and the capabilities of some of these sophomores and some of these junior college players that are in here to step out onto this field? That's where the rubber will meet the road ultimately. But yeah, Jeff, I've never been through. We onboarded 26 players. I think pretty much a split, 9 Division I transfers, which is hard to do. 4 junior college transfers, lost a couple junior college transfers in the draft, lost some other transfers to the draft. And then you have your young group. So if you look at your Cam Smith and Jamie Arnold and Ben Barrett, names that you're going to remember from last year, you have to have those good young freshmen that are growing and maturing with the program. And we have that group this year. It's when those guys start to engage in the workload that really should be reflective of the rest of the roster. You shouldn't always have to thrust freshmen into the fire. So the older group, the transfers, your Cam Lighters, your Daniel Cantu, Noah Short, Marco Dinges, Carson Dorsey, you can just go on and on. That gives you some maturity. And then you also onboard your younger pups and you try to develop them and let them grow and learn and get stronger. That's really how you have to function in college athletics. And I think you'll see a better representation of that on our field this year. And clearly you see it on the roster.
Yeah, it's I love talking to coaches about this because, as you noted, it is an unprecedented time, and it can be overwhelming. I can only imagine, to try to be doing so many things at the same time, but you have no choice. This is the task at hand. It is talent acquisition, as you noted, and there were holes to be filled on this roster, as we both know. And so it's got to be incredibly frustrating. You think you have it done, and then, like you said, somebody decides to go pro or whatever it might be, and the next thing you know, you got to pivot and you got to look at another kid. Which means if you're going to have 50, you were looking at 100, you were looking at 70. I mean, it's ongoing all the time.
So we talked about it the other day. I think anybody would tell you this. If you're going after the group you need to go after, your ratio might be you're recruiting 4 to fill that one pitching spot that you're trying to fill. But if you're trying to fill 5 pitching spots, think about how many players you're trying to engage and recruit and visit and talk to land the 4 or 5 or 6 that you need. Now, this isn't something that you can do every year, but clearly last summer we were in a position where we had to do it. And quite frankly, you rewind the year before, there really wasn't, nobody was here to do it. So the fact that we were here gave us a head start on grabbing some of these players. And it is not easy. And as this was going on, I was trying to get Chuck the head coaching job at Navy and Rich the head coaching job at UCF, and they got it. So, thank goodness Micah. The most important factor in their exodus and Micah and Ty onboarding was the pitching coach. Like, these high-profile arms want to talk about the pitching coach's developmental plan. What technology do you have? What is the facility like? What is your plan? What is your throwing program? What data do you look at? What video system do you use? So that was a critical piece. And Micah, he gets it. If there's anybody that understands the necessity to mesh the technology with the old school, the verbiage, the analytics, the data, the TrackMan, all of the nuances of this, he gets it. So having somebody that knows that, knew Tallahassee, knew our program, knew what was going on, having him get in here quickly was so important. And I talked to Rich this morning. Those guys got fantastic head coaching jobs, and it's not easy. There's people that interview and never have the opportunity to get those head coaching jobs. So those guys are in a great position now. Having Micah on board, Ty has recruited players from 39 states and knows the country. He's great. Played for me, knows my language. So we're in a good place. But when you go back to the talent acquisition, those arms, they want to talk to that pitching coach. And thank goodness we were able to get him in here quickly.
It's interesting, Link, going back a ways, certainly. I'm 52 years old, love baseball. We used to just say about a guy's breaking ball that it fell off the table or it was nasty or whatever it was. Now we talk about spin rate. We talk about 3,000 RP, all that stuff. Like, if you talk to a kid who pitches, nobody uses the same phrases. It's all the technical terms that you're referencing. Like, they have to be able to sit down across from a pitching coach, and they have to have what to the layman like me, who's not in the game on a daily basis, but reads all about what the technological advances. It's a foreign language. It's amazing when they start talking pitching.
To tell you how far it's gone, Seth Maness was our graduate assistant last year. Seth Maness pitched in the big leagues for 6 years. Yep. He was one of the most consistent relievers in Major League Baseball in that span. He was talking to some guys that were in, like, front office Major League Baseball organizations and player development. He said, Link, as I talked to these guys, I felt like there were moments where I didn't understand pitching in the game. They were using language and terms that I was not comfortable with. And some of these guys had never actually pitched and did it in the big leagues. So that can tell you where this industry can go when you're analyzing 25 different metrics on every pitch that is thrown. And then you get into the kinesiology of the delivery and the body and how the body works and what's the body doing on a breaking ball. We've gone way beyond even the analytics of the ball in some of the nuances that they're grabbing. So it is fascinating. When we talk about this with our team, often we did create a pitching lab. Like, it's a neat little space where we have the TrackMan in the cage, took a cage down, TrackMan there, just dedicated for pitching. Really cool. TV, super slow motion camera. because the kids have grown up in a training setting, and if you want to call it a laboratory setting, and they do all their preseason winter work in these settings, what they sometimes have to remember is at the end of the day, when you're right out on that mound on this field, there is no mid-pitch analytical adjustment. It's competition. So going from that setting into real world, what is the hitter doing? Can you get this guy out? Can you control the running game? Can you field your position? That still exists, but I think it's waning in terms of what they've grown up doing. So it's really a fascinating era we're in, in terms of the technology.
Because I've had the good fortune of talking to you in the past and some of your assistant coaches, I know that one of the things that you really value when you're recruiting a kid is where can he play championship defense for me, right?
Yeah.
Like when you and I've talked about this briefly, and you want, when you're recruiting guys, when your staff is recruiting guys, and you want them to come to you and say, this guy's a championship defender at second, left field, whatever it might be, right? I felt like, and you may disagree with me, when I watched last year's team, you had guys that had to play, in some cases, out of position because of their bat. You had to get them in the lineup, and they weren't necessarily comfortable where they were playing, but you had to get them in there. And other guys that, just maybe you thought long-term that might be their position, but they weren't championship-level defenders yet at that particular position. Bottom line is, to me, it looked like a team of guys that was kind of out of place to some degree. Not everybody, but do you share that? And do you think that as we look at this overview coming into this season, you've been able to remedy some of that?
You nailed it. Like, believe me. And I'm going to tell you right now, those dudes out there, as tough as that was last year, but hey, tough on everybody. Some dudes out there laid it on the line, like with all they had. I mean, Colton Vincent, every inning. Nander coming back. Nander wasn't even on our team. Like we didn't really have a lot of middle infield depth. Cam Smith had never played third. He's laying it on the line. It wasn't always pretty. But those dudes laid it on the line. And Colton Vincent getting a chance to go out and play professional baseball was probably the neatest thing that happened as the dust settles with last year's draft. Really cool. Jeff, I think we've moved the needle on that. I always assess when you go around the diamond, not just one deep. How many functional left fielders do you have that can play really, like you're talking about, championship level outfield defense, center field, right field, third base, shortstop, second, middle infield depth? Do you have a first baseman that is fundamentally sound, adept, understands the nuances of that position? And how much depth do you have behind the plate? Clearly better. I think the physicality of the group, you look at Tibbs and Ferrer and Smith, and you kind of go down the line of some of these guys that you've seen play, Diamez Ross, Kamaka. The physicality of the group on the field, you'll notice it. Just the raw depth of having some options is also noticeable to me. Then you look at how well does that group function as a team, like a team unit. Concerns that I have are just pure defensive instincts. That has been something as a coach, whether it's the fact that in the time leading into being on this campus, like the travel ball circuit, they get to play a lot of games, but the practice repetition and the base running and the instincts of defense, I think our game overall has forced college coaches to spend more time on trying to teach the instincts of the game defensively, because we practice hard and the reps are game-like, and those are new to some of these players that may not have had summer and fall actual old school Legion ball practices and ground balls and reps and BP and base run. So I do have concerns still with our overall defensive instincts. I think if you were to showcase the talent defensively, the arm strength, the range, the running speed, the fielding ability, better. Those defensive instincts are still something that I do have concerns with. When you go to the pitching side, when you look at Jamie Arnold and Cam Leiter and Carson Dorsey and Connor Whitaker and Ben Barrett and some of these guys that profile as potential starting pitchers on that side of the ball, how comfortable are they lengthening out those starts? Can somebody give you 6, 7 innings consistently? That changes the whole dynamic of the week. Like when you have to start cranking that bullpen up in the 3rd and 4th inning, that's not how you want to do it. And we have some really nice variety in the bullpen, but at the end of the day, Cam Leiter and Jamie Arnold and Whitaker and Tejeda and Dorsey and some of these guys, you're not going to know all these names yet. If they can lengthen this out and do what you would hope your front line starting pitching guys can do, the pitching staff has a chance to be pretty cool to watch. We got Noah Short, a side armor from the University of West Virginia. We've got Armstrong and Oxford, and we have a junior college pitcher, left-handed pitcher, Holtz, got a really good breaking ball, hard torquing breaking ball. You've got some good variety, and then you have your younger freshmen that are waiting in the wings and are developing. But Leiter, Arnold, Dorsey, Whitaker extending outings, Ben Barrett extending, not matching and bobbing and weaving, but take the ball and go. Like, let us get into this game. That's the key to the pitching staff, and I think it'll be clearly better.
Good news is we got a chance. We'll talk one more time before opening day, and I'll let you go through once guys have solidified their spots, and you can kind of tell me what you want to tell me about those guys that you've named as starters for that day or that weekend, and we can go through that. But I do have to ask you this before we sign off. And again, I just wanted to make sure we got a good overview here. So many new faces and new names. You mentioned one of them right out the gate. I get asked about this guy all the time, so I'll ask it to you. Cam Leiter throws 4 pitches for strikes from what I can tell, and a lot of people are very excited. I don't want you to put undue pressure on folks, but I guess pitching was a problem a year ago. We both admit that. You said that before the season, that you were a little nervous about pitching depth. So it's good to hear you talk this positively about options and depth and guys that you think the fans should be excited about.
Cam Leiter, it's intensity every pitch. Like, this guy is in it, on it, emotional, was in it last year a little bit as a freshman, but was a freshman. There aren't a ton of freshmen that step out and they're finished products and ready to go. If that's the case, guess what? They're not on a college campus. So, when they get there, there's something they're trying to hone in that craft. Jeff, this has been, we're talking 94 to 98, 90-mile-an-hour slider, over-the-top curveball, changeup is in play. The emotional intensity and handling things that are going to come up. It's not going to be flawless. We're not going to throw perfect games every time we walk out there. There's going to be things that happen. There are going to be things outside of your control. Umpire, defense, something unusual happens. Staying on the rails, like focus, management of emotion, what's going on. That's where he's going to take that final step and become like a dude. We talk about dudes, like we need dudes out there, a chance to be a front line, take the ball on a weekend, Friday or Saturday night, and get this program and team into that series with some energy and some intensity. I've seen it. Now repeating it every weekend, that's where we land. And Jamie Arnold, you're talking about it, and we had to do it last year, Jeff. Like, as a freshman, we asked him to do some things that probably, it's a lot that be a Saturday starter as a freshman in what was the toughest schedule in the country. But he's more seasoned. He understands himself. We're trying to get these guys to be the best versions of themselves. I think he's closer to that. Can he lengthen these things out? Carson Dorsey, different lefty. Jamie Arnold's slot is a lower, kind of a whippier crossfire slot. Dorsey's a little bit more over the top, totally different fastball, but those are two good dynamic lefties. And then Armstrong and Oxford and Holtz, probably more in shorter, more explosive spurts. But those guys are going to be fun. Benny Barrett, Whitaker, you've seen them. We get it. It's just the development and maturity and older and experience. You're going to be better for that. And you'll see that out of those guys this year too.
Next time I'll talk to you about Saucer and Abraham and some of the others and all these guys. It's going to be fun. I'm glad we're talking baseball again, Link. I'm so ready for this, and I know you are too. I know as a coach, though, there's never enough time. There's never enough time. So, like, you're probably thinking, yeah, it's great to be talking baseball, Jeff. Can you let me go do my job? So I'll let you go do that. I'll let you go do that right now, Link. And it's good catching up with you. I'll see you real soon. Okay, buddy?
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it, man.